Welcome back to This Was Supposed to Be Easy, your go-to podcast for connection, joy, and a good dose of laughter.
Hosted by two friends who've seen enough of life to know that it's never as simple as it sounds
or looks.
Each conversation celebrates the diverse journeys we travel, the moments of bravery, the strength we didn't know we had, and the joy we find along the way.
Because let's be honest, life is full of things that were supposed to be easy, but turned out to be harder.
And definitely funnier
than we thought. This is Amy.
And this is Cheryl. And if it were easy, we wouldn't be here.
So Cheryl, this week I was driving home from a conference, spending time in my car like I always do. And I saw that two of my favorite podcasters that I listen to often were together in an episode. So it's Mayim, Bialik, and Sinek. And part of the episode of the podcast that they were doing together, Simon was a guest on Mayim, was that they were talking about her being more of a pessimist and him being more of an optimist. And they really kind of got down into the nuts and bolts of what that looks like. And I thought it would be a good conversation and maybe even play off of something that we've talked about here, and that's hope. And the discussion was that she was saying that with all of the bad things that are currently going on in the world and all the dark times, that how can you really label yourself as an optimist? And he shared that it's not that he doesn't recognize that there are bad things happening and going on, but it's the use of hope and belief that things have the opportunity and will get better. And so I thought that as you and I talk about some things, I know you've brought up hope. You've brought up hope as character strengths. You've brought up hope in previous conferences that you've put together. But I don't really know if we've talked in great detail about hope on this podcast. And so I thought that might be a great opportunity for us to do that today.
I love that you bring this up because as I've moved through the month of January and feel like I'm on that train in the 2026 ride, I am needing to just dig in more and more and in new ways into the character strengths and find ways to use them more in my life. And hope is so much a part of that, right? It is so easy right now to feel discouraged, to feel overwhelmed. And I remember when I worked with an honor student a couple years ago, we did a project on optimism and optimistic thinking. And like you just mentioned with Simon, it's not, like all marshmallow fluff and beautiful clouds floating by when there's really this terrible storm happening. True optimism, true hope is actually grounded in action, right? It's not just wishful thinking. It's using that belief that I have power to influence. I have power to see that something better can come that really guides us forward. And I love the idea of talking about that more and how we might all be able to tap into hope, whether it's a signature strength or it falls lower into our lesser strengths. There are things that we can do to either immediately utilize hope or start to build it a little bit more.
So I love that what you just ended that sentence with build it more. So the idea that you can build it, that it isn't something that you're either born a hopeful person or not a hopeful person, that there is a way to kind of build that hope in your life if maybe you're feeling like you're missing some of it.
Yeah, because we don't all have feel-good emotions all the time, right? Like the idea of building hope is really looking at what can I do to connect to the bigger picture, not just this one thing bad happened and I'm going to really perseverate on it and only think about how terrible it was, but acknowledge that it was terrible. But there's this bigger umbrella of things that are happening in the world and places that I could connect and explain how that cause or that bad event could be interpreted differently, right? So instead of taking that pessimistic perspective, or even maybe I've acknowledged that I currently have a pessimistic perspective, that I can shift, right? I can practice small things so that when I catch myself thinking, ooh, this bad thing happened to me and I don't have control over that, I can find these small moments where instead I can shift it to no, internally, I can see something different. I can look at what's happening more broadly and sort of seek a little bit of stability in that process. I think that I might need to talk more about it to help all of what I just said made sense, because I have that tendency to ramble whether I'm talking or whether I'm typing. So maybe we should just see where this goes.
Okay, that works. So, one of the things that I'm thinking about, so right now, I will be fully transparent. I watch the news and I see things and it feels dark and heavy. And I find myself really forcing myself to like look for the good, look for, because it's so easy to fall in everything that's going wrong, right? Like everything
Yeah.
that's going wrong is blown up loud and hear that. And you're walking around with other people who are talking about bad. And I remember back, I think it was during COVID, I think John Krasinski had started
Oh,
a little show that he was doing kind of, and it was like
like
something
good
good.
things or
Yeah.
good good news. Good
Good
news?
news. Yeah, there's something like that. And then I've ended up seeing other YouTubers that have pulled something positive. So they share like a 30-second positive thing. I remember watching one just the other day that came up on TikTok, and it was about a gentleman who started volunteering at a cat clinic and he would nap with cats. And like
Uh-huh.
that was his thing. But it really got me thinking too about, we've talked about you can always find what you're looking for, right? And so
Hmm.
I think one of the ways that I know for myself that I have to believe, well, just that is something I believe there is always hope possible, there's always hope for something better. But I think too, I know for myself when I'm feeling really like, how can this get better? That I have to look for things that make me laugh. I have to look for things that of people who are doing good things in the world. Like, and believe that there are still people out there that are doing those good things, because that's what brings about hope for me.
Yeah.
That hope that not everyone is bad. And I know that not everyone is. And I hesitate to even use good and bad and those types of things, because it's not that simple. It's not that simplistic, right? There's
Mhm.
a lot of complicated feelings that often get mixed into a lot of these things. And I think there's also the ability to say, I don't know. Like, we have to be able to allow the opportunity in this to say, I have to let myself recognize that I don't know everything, but I know I can feel that this could be better.
Yeah. I feel like I just heard you talk about the pathway of maybe helplessness, right? Like to just look at what is happening or to look at what other people are doing about something and say, I'm helpless. I can't be that. Or, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. And I don't know until there's a black hole and we just disappear into it. But when you think about hope, you're able to say, this person is doing this really great thing. Maybe I'm not capable of that, but what am I capable of doing? Or what am I able to do? Right. So it's not passive, it's the mindset plus looking for what I can do, looking for the pathway that fits for me or the opportunity that exists for me to step onto that pathway and find a strategy or a route, to make my contribution.
So it sounds like it's mindset plus action together. that
Yeah.
it's not just the mindset of believing. So if I'm breaking it down, the mindset is the positivity, the optimism, but hope is the belief plus then the action of what can you contribute to doing something a little bit different.
Yeah. And I think you all have heard me talk about the VIA Institute on Character. And definitely hope is one of those 24 character strengths. And it's, expecting that things can be better in the future and belief that you can achieve your goals, belief that you can take action. There's that grounding in that purposeful action. But along with the VIA Character Strengths Institute, I think we're talking a little bit about, from psychology, Snyder's hope theory, right? Like it's this positive motivational state, but you have agency and you have pathways that you take and move down. It's not just thinking. Yes, you got it, Amy.
Okay. All right.
Right.
Sometimes I just need to, work it out because I think hope's one of those things. It's an easy word, but kind of hard to put in a true definition.
Yeah.
Like if because it's a little, I think sometimes it can be misstrued for something that is a part of it, but not all of it.
Right. So maybe we could talk a little bit more about why you and I think hope matters. What is out there that has been researched about hope or that we can learn or understand about hope so that, we can understand better why it matters to even try.
Yeah, I think that for myself, and just talking about myself here, I have a tendency to lean in to, and I was not always able to process this. So let me kind of start by saying that. But I believe when things happen, that they happen for me instead of to me. And I believe that I can always control my attitude towards whatever's happening. So it doesn't mean that I can't say this feels really shitty in the moment. Sorry if you're driving in the car with your children. Um, but that this feels really bad in the moment, but there's something I can pull from it that is going to make me a better version of myself afterwards.
And you and I were talking a little bit before we started recording. In that conversation, we did have a little bit of a moment of, I don't know if realization is the right word, but like that connection of, yeah, when I am able to take this internal perspective versus things are happening to me, right? Which is an external perspective, and have that sense of agency again, you are contributing to your well-being. Because if you don't have hope, I just see these spirals into depression and spirals into why bother? Why keep trying? And that's not good for our well-being. And there's a reason that hope is so strongly associated with satisfaction in life and well-being. And it's because people who can see beyond and can find ways to contribute to getting to that beyond do tend to be healthier. They tend to be happier, more successful. They're able to cope with that stress and cope with that adversity because they know it won't always be that bad.
Yes. I like everything that you're saying, and I think that as I'm processing it, and maybe I might even be a little kind of slower in my reuptake, and how I'm speaking about this is because I'm processing and thinking about it in real time as I'm listening to what you're sharing, and I'm thinking about my own feelings about hope and just feeling how important it is. And also some of the things that I think about too are the individuals I have known that have gotten to that hopeless feeling
Mhm.
and then what depression has looked like for them. And it wasn't until they could pick back up hope first that they were kind of able to work out of that depression through all the ways that they needed to, speaking to a therapist, medication, whatever it is, and able to pull themselves out of it. And I even think about times that I know I've been depressed and have had to work on things with a therapist and do those where it just feels like, okay, the sun is still shining, the birds are still chirping. What is there to look forward to? What is there to look towards? Believing again that there's good in the world and that there are good people in the world. All of those things combined allow me action. But I think then, too, what becomes really important, and this kind of goes along with it, is that I believe I'm a good person as well. And that I believe I can do for others and be that hopeful being, hopeful entity. I can give someone else hope through my actions. And I know for me, I have the greatest feeling of hope possible when I know that I can help provide a hopeful moment for someone else by doing something too. So it makes sense of everything that you're saying being about doing when I know that I have control over who I am and how I show up gives me hope that others can do that as well.
Right. Because, yeah, it's doing right? Like the mindset of there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way around this. There's got to be a way to move forward. There has to be another method to try. Every situation might tap into something else, but I think that's what hope is. And you mentioned the John Krasinski, and I can't remember if it was actually called Good News or A Few Good Things or what it was called, but right, that was real people doing good things. And you mentioned to me a couple days ago about how you've noticed a change in your social media algorithm, right? You were seeing
Yes.
things that weren't typical for your algorithm. And I would love to be able to manipulate the algorithm to show more of those good news items. And I know there's people out there who are making the effort to only post, here's this good thing. And that's not blinders, right?
No.
That's we're seeing all the stuff. Maybe we're in the middle of experiencing all the stuff, but it helps to see the good things that are also happening. And sometimes when I catch one of those people who are posting that type of news, I'll follow them so that it does start to fill in my algorithm a little bit more because we spend a lot of time looking at videos and clips. And I think it helps us to see hope in action.
Yes. And I did just look it up and it was some good news. So
Some good
we
news. Okay.
yes, so we have the title now.
We were
Uh,
almost there.
we're so close, right?
Yeah. So, Amy, let's maybe talk about ways we could or have built hope or cultivated hope.
So I know one of the things that I've done and it goes back to things that we've talked about before, in that I will tell myself I'm going to look for a minimum of two positive things today. So I might say today I'm going to look for at least two people being kind or helpful to someone else. And maybe it's me noticing that somebody held the door open for somebody else, or that somebody allowed somebody to go in front of them in line at the grocery store because that person only had two items. Um, Maybe it's picking up a glove that I see somebody dropped and somebody else like went along behind them and picked it up and, called out and handed them their glove back. Little things that I see happening all the time of people being good to one another gives me hope that not everyone is bad. I've also really tried, and I know we kind of steer clear a little bit of politics in a way here, but I think again, trying to not isolate groups. I've been really trying lately to see individuals for individuals. Now, a person is made up of a set of characteristics that make them. Does it mean I like every characteristic that that person brings forward? No. But can I believe that every person has the ability, option, or something that
Potential.
potential? Yes, the potential. Yes, the potential to be something positive. And I also believe that some people I have to look really hard And it can be very, very, very difficult. But to someone, they were positive to that, to something. So,
And
like,
I'm going to just throw in there,
please
just
do.
for the sake. I love that you're looking for those things and, trying to recognize that every person has value, but you're not saying I have to open myself up to every person,
No,
right?
not at
Yeah.
all. In fact, I would say one of the ways for me to remain hopeful is to also be aware of what I need to be hopeful. And it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that everyone gets access to me. And it doesn't mean everyone gets access to me equally. So there are individuals that I can choose to say, I am going to choose to look for the good in this situation. I am going to believe that there is an opportunity here. But right now, to protect myself, I can't engage or I can't step into this experience with you. I can believe and hope that in the future, maybe we could. But today, right now, for myself, I have to protect myself and my own mental well-being and my headspace, and I can't go there with you.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. Well, and I'll even go one step further. Maybe I don't even want to have a relationship with any given certain person in the future, but it doesn't mean I wish them harm,
Right.
right? Right. It can be like, okay, this is clearly that defining moment where you're over going in this direction and I'm going in this direction, and we will both go in our own directions.
And you know what I've said? So I have individuals in my life that I can say that I don't enjoy. They have done things to myself or people I know that I don't think are good things, and I do not enjoy them. And I have also said, I wish you peace. I hope that you find comfort. I hope that you find joy. I hope that you find a purpose other than what you're doing right now. I hope that you are able to meet your goals in a way that doesn't cause harm to other people. I hope that you are able to live a happy life in whatever way that happiness might be. And I even would say all of those things because those are things that I hope someone would wish for me, even if they don't like me or don't like who I am. Or because the thing is, I've really realized as part of hope, I was hoping that people would change to be a version of themselves that I liked, and I realized that wasn't fair to someone else.
Mhm.
But I can also hope good things and hope all of those things. I can also say I wish that things were different, but I found when I was wishing for things to be different, then I was leaning into grief, and I needed those two to pair. So in that process, I was able to then say, I am going to grieve the loss of what was. I am going to grieve the loss of what could have been and may never be. And I'm going to hope for the best.
Yeah, you can have hope that while things have changed and what you're grieving about from the past is past, you can have that hope that there's still something good coming.
Yes.
So I was thinking about like specific things that we can do to cultivate hope. And yesterday, I successfully took care of something on my list that was one of those unfinished business items that was weighing on me, and it was ordering my seeds for all the flowers that I want to grow this spring and summer and fall. And so yesterday I went through the catalog again, kind of pared down my list a little bit, but I do have a lot of seeds coming in the mail really soon. But I'm even thinking about that as a strategy, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm leaning into something I love, which is flowers, which is, a connection with nature in that way. But even just the opportunity to think about the seed itself and the hope that it brings, right? It comes in this little hard, almost like shell sometimes. And you could look at that and just sort of be like, what good is that? But there's so much hope inside the seed that just by virtue of planting it and caring for it, I begin to feel hope. And it's just this feeling that can impact my life well beyond the practice of growing a flower, right? It's probably a random, weird strategy. But for me, I'm just going to say, like finding something that gives me hope, which in this case is taking that next step towards planting a seed and using that to broaden my perspective a little bit. And then, as you were also talking, I was thinking about the social support, right? Like who's in our social system that is a support where we can have conversations about hope, like you and I are having right now, because hope grows when it's shared with others, when we have people we can talk about, when we have friendships or colleagues or even therapists that can be that trusted person to help us work towards our goals. And you are always asking me questions. You're asking me about my goals or how I might approach something that I want to do. And I think that becomes a hopeful conversation that can be thought of as a strategy towards building hope.
I like the idea of leaning on other people in the positive too with that. And I think thinking about that hope doesn't have to be done in isolation,
Hmm.
because I do know that what gives me hope is other people and those positivity and seeking that out. And I think that's another way to look at a situation as well with how, who do I know that has kind of a hopeful mindset, and how do I maybe spend time with them to, because they're already seeing it and talking about it. So then maybe I'm going to see it and talk about it a little bit more,
Yeah. And,
because of that.
and then I have something to think about when I am alone, maybe planting my seeds or watering my plants or whatever. Like then the thoughts that are in my head when I'm doing something alone or doing something creatively have shifted.
Hmm.
I'm going to throw another thing out there because I talk about gratitude. We talk about looking for the good. You've already brought it up. I think that that could connect to a very specific intention of hope journaling. Like if you're really wanting to broaden and build your hopefulness, maybe think about hope journaling. Like, could I think about a future that I would look forward to, or an event in the future that I could look forward to, and spend a little time journaling what I might try to get there?
Let's take it even a step further. So, yes, do that. Write out, journal what it might look like, and then turn it into action. We've talked about it, hope being an actual action with that. So, we all know what SMART goals are. The SMART goals being specific, measurable, achievable, actionable, relevant, time bound. Those SMART goals that actually have kind of a way around it. So then that way, instead of it being a wishful thinking, it is the action plan that goes. So you take that belief that it could, and then you make steps to make it happen. And
Yes,
it might be one small thing. So perfect example of you ordering your seeds.
I did
And
it.
you were doing something for your future self.
Yes,
And I'm going to even say you are doing something for the future beautification and of your home. And I know you also take those flowers and you press them and you make them into gifts for people. And you do all of these things with that. So in doing that, you are doing good for others because of all the potential and hope that you have with those seeds turning into the flowers and the plants that you want them to. And how you can better not only your life and your environment, but better other people's lives because of it.
yes. And, taking that SMART goal and take that little baby step and remembering that if it fails, there's another way. Try again, right? Because I have planted seeds that start to shoot up and then boom, all of a sudden they're dead. And I'm like, what did I do? Or what could I do differently? And that's also a part of hope, right? Take the step, try the thing, be okay with failure because it means you're growing, and try again. Maybe if I have a SMART goal written out or a dream of something happening I do a little mind mapping and I have 3 potential pathways in mind so that when one pathway doesn't work, I've already thought about pathway number 2 or pathway number 3.
I think that this conversation has really given me something to look forward to. I'm really excited to see your flowers and all of that, but I think I'm also excited to hear about from our listeners about what they are doing to foster their own hope in their life and what actionable steps that they are taking or do they want to take. I love, love, love. If nothing else, you have learned from listening to our podcast. I've learned that I love people's stories. And so please share your stories with us about what you are doing today to bring hope into your everyday existence.
So as we end today, Amy, and you prompt us to think about stories, I've realized that the early childhood conference that I hold with my colleague Alex, typically once a year, our theme in August was Together We Hope. And I don't know why I didn't really connect to that earlier, but when we brought in our friend Suzanne, who we've also interviewed on this podcast, she really felt the urgency to look into hope and to do that together with other people who were willing to be hopeful. And while we were planning that conference, she shared a poem with me that I think I would like to end today by reading this poem with that invitation to everyone. Share your ideas, share your little bitty steps that you're going to take so that you also, by sharing, give us hope. So, this is a poem Suzanne shared with me, written by Emily Dickinson, and it's called Hope is the Thing with Feathers. And I'm going to read it. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and in the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me.
Thanks for tuning in to This Was Supposed to Be Easy. Remember, the best stories are the ones we live.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep the conversation going because life may not be easy, but listening in should be.
Stay curious, stay connected, and keep wondering.